Hello, everybody. Sharyn Sheldon here from Content Sparks, and welcome to today's live stream in celebration of our launch of our new course called ChatGPT Content Creation Essential Skills. And this is something completely different the way we've laid it out for in comparison to all our other courses, because we knew you needed to be easy to update and deliver on the fly. So it doesn't make sense to have a ton of materials that then you have to keep updating as ChatGPT keeps updating. There's a lot of information on the sales page. I'm not going to be going into much of that today, other than telling you about the launch bonus at the end. We're mainly going to be focusing on the key concerns that people have around using AI for content creation. And my main focus is written content. There's so many different things you could create with like video and now audio and images that are a little bit trickier. And there's so many different tools. So we're going to focus on the written content. And if you do want to hop over to that, I did share this in an email. I don't want you to get distracted by it now, though. It's just contentsparks.com/chat GPT content. And that is the sales page. I'll share it again later as well. Make sure that if you're on Facebook, you follow those directions to give permission for me to see your name, because otherwise I see Facebook user, and that's not very exciting. I'd rather call you by name. And you can drop any comments then right below here, and I'll see those and I'll answer them as we go. I'll take breaks to answer things if I see them. I know a lot of people watch this on a replay because we're all inundated with live streams and webinars all the time now. I will still see those comments, especially on Facebook, or you can always email us as well at support@contentsparks.com. All right. So that's all the chit chat. For now, I'm going to head straight over to my screen and my slides, and we will start getting into this right away. Okay. This is just the sales page. So I shared that link with you already, so you know what that is. And that was this ChatGPT content. And again, I'm not going to be going through this. You have the link, you'll go through. There's a little overview video, there's some other details. And I also did a whole big peek inside where I do show you the materials and how they work. So that is there for you. And we will just head over to the slides to get going. The title for today's session is Using AI to Create Written Content, Concerns and Solutions. These are the biggest concerns I hear people talk about all the time, the same ones that I have as well. And I've been involved in a AI success club for the last year where we discuss this as well and get tips and share different ideas and prompts and things that help create really high quality content. The how to plus how you can teach others to use it the right way, that little subtitle there, that has to do with our course that we just released, how you can actually teach it. But we're going to mainly go through concerns and solutions. I will share some things on ChatGPT as well, but chime in as well with your own comments and experience, including if you disagree with me. I love to hear that too. So if you disagree with me, go for it and let me know. Otherwise, let's get going. So the agenda today, I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly impact of AI in content creation. And there are plenty of all of that. The top concerns I always hear and how you can address them. And then just talking a little bit behind the scenes of our new course. Like I said, there's a lot on the sales page about that, so you don't really need to go too much into it here. And a little explanation of the launch special I have on right now, which is only for the rest of the month, just until next Wednesday. So you'll want to grab that. So let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good with AI, the stuff we all want to be able to do, it will definitely save you time in some instances. You can also lose time if you go too overboard. but it's great for sparking ideas, even improving quality of the content. So things like grammar or finding missing ideas, missing points, that's a lot of where the ideas part comes into play. Suggestions, tailoring things to different audiences, starting points. Just if you're looking at a blank page, you can have conversations with it just as if you were using somebody as a sounding board. Doesn't mean you'll use it necessarily, but it gets your brain going so that you get some ideas, especially if you know your topic. It's a little bit tougher if you don't know your topic. And that's where some of bad comes in. It can be very generic. It can be very shallow. So it doesn't go into things in depth, and it can be very repetitive. So you'll see the same types of answers just presented in different ways, unless you know how to really dig in and get it to be specific and then add your own content to that. And you will start seeing a lot of repetition of the same language and styles and sentence formats as well, which will become obvious to you as you use it more. I'm sure you've probably already seen a lot of emails where it says revolutionize and transform and elevate. And you're not just getting this, you're getting that. It's not just this, it's that. So these are all sorts of things that you might have used in the past in terms of sentence structure. But because ChatGPT uses those, it's trained on those sorts of models, suddenly everything sounds like that and it starts sounding like a robot and like AI, even if you used that and wrote that way in the past. So that's where it's actually elevating quality also and forcing you to think harder and improve the quality of your writing. But that shallow part also is really important because it doesn't tend to go into depth, especially dealing with complex ideas. And it might sound good on the surface, but it's up to you to really force it into more detail and add those details and think from the perspective of whoever's going to be reading it. ChatGPT, other AI tools don't have that intuition that you have. It doesn't understand nuances. That's up to you as well. You're the one judging it. And in terms of the ugly, and this is something that is very concerning. The webs is getting flooded with AI content and a lot of garbage. It's getting flooded with courses that are being generated by AI without someone actually pushing it, thinking from a student standpoint, what's a good learning experience? Is there enough explanation here? Do they have the right tools? Is it structured? These AI courses, these crappy ones, are just being pushed out there. There's a lot of inaccurate information flooding the web. There's Google is having some issues already. I'm sure they will improve, but the Google search results are not as reliable as they used to be as they start learning how to battle the spam that's being created by AI. And the false promises as well. This drives me crazy. And I'm sure you've seen it all the time. People promising that you can do this, that, and the other. Hands off, AI will do it all for you. Build your sales funnel from start to finish with AI. Create a course in 15 minutes with AI. These are all false promises. Don't get taken in by them. It's it's that really where the case, and when it does happen, that's the garbage that's getting flooded onto the web that isn't really resonating with people, that isn't going into enough depth or detail or practical use. The courses are terrible. So be aware of that. They are it's a starting point. It's a way for you to be a little more productive, get more ideas, suggestions, revisions, and it definitely saves time in certain areas like formatting something or finding missing points. So be aware of all of that and definitely take all those things about you can do it in 5 minutes or a few clicks with AI, take those with a grain of salt and be very wary. Lou, you had a question on here. Have you seen any backlash or resentment from people if they know it's AI versus custom content? I have not seen that because if you are creating content with the user in mind and the type of solution they're really looking for and making sure you're meeting that need, people don't even know that it's AI assisted. AI generated is very different from AI assisted. So AI generated, people will recognize because it's not useful, and that's what's flooding the web. AI assisted is just where you let it help you create that content. And then you put in and make your element, your human voice and insights and detail to make sure it is meeting people's needs. So I actually asked this of our group at one point, and the general consensus was so long as it's good quality and meeting my needs, I don't care. And I don't even necessarily recognize it. So that's the backlash is for the bad stuff. And you also say AI generated seems almost cliche. Yeah, people say that all the time. They say it's AI generated. It isn't always even AI generated. It's often just an algorithm, something that's been around for ages, but people like to say, oh, I've used AI or I'm using AI and AI is built into this and built into that. Often it's just an algorithm and they've always been using it. So we're talking more about AI in terms of the natural language processing, the predictive language where you're writing stuff. There are different areas of AI, like machine learning, that's a little bit different as well. Another point on the good, the bad, and the ugly, I mentioned Google. In search engine land, they were just talking about this recently in an article that the prevalence of this mass produced AI generated content, so not AI assisted, but AI generated, is making it harder for Google to detect spam because they can't keep up with it. But they're working hard, and you know how fast Google is with their algorithms. They are improving its ability to identify the low quality. They focus on I think it's called the experience, authoritative, the helpful content that's actually answering people's questions. I can't remember the last bit. If anyone knows it, let me know. I think it's EAT or EEAT in there. But this was just from December 21st, 2023. So relatively recently, as things are evolving, that's something Google is working on, so we don't have to worry as much. But if you do the traditional approach that you should always do, which is answering users' questions, your target audience's key questions in a thorough way that's engaging, then you're always going to be ahead of the game. You will make it to the top of search engines. You will get good reviews. You'll create good content. You'll create good courses and responses. If you stick with that mindset, then you'll be fine and you can use AI the right way. But let's go into some of those other concerns as well. And as I said, there's good news. You can learn and teach these skills to overcome most of the issues that we're going to be talking about and really reap the benefits of AI for content creation and get that time saving and improving quality. So the first thing that everyone talks about is, and the question is, will my content sound like everyone else's? This is a really valid concern because if you don't use it the right way, it will sound like everyone else's content. But if you use it to leverage AI for ideas and revisions versus copying and pasting content, then it won't sound like it. You'll be getting ideas and going from there. If you can use it with your original content and get it to revise parts of it. So do it in portions where you could ask it for other approaches or other variations, combinations. Think about different ways you could approach your content, original stuff, and get it to change that. Or start with something that's from ChatGPT and start working with it from there and adding your personal style, tone, voice into any kind of AI assisted content. And that's something with ChatGPT that's great because it can, and I'll show you this, you have that option to add custom instructions. So if I go into my ChatGPT, you'll see at the bottom, I have my name. You can click on your name and click on custom instructions. And this is in the free version also. So if you put in, it says, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? You can talk about who you are, who your audience is, what to do, the style and tone preferences. I have all of that in here. You only get 1,500 characters. So if you have a very long style tone guide and detailed audience, you may have to make it a little more concise. And also you can tell it how to respond. So I have things like getting it to provide an outline first, since sometimes I have a longer request called a super prompt, they call it now, or additional preferences like confirming understanding before tackling longer requests. Ask for clarity if you're not sure, and feel free to give suggestions or opinions because otherwise it agrees with you, which it still tends to do all the time. Address me as Sharyn. I just happen to like that. That's just me. Makes it feel better. So that is that. I'll show you some other things as well as we go along. But let me go back to my slides for now. I'm looking aside at my other monitor just so you know why I'm looking aside. So that was the first concern, sounding like everyone else. I'll talk more about other things you can do there too. But if you're starting with the ideas and revisions, adding your personal style and editing all the time, you won't have that issue. Will my content sound robotic? That's a similar type of issue. And that's where combining the AI with human editing is really important as well. Personalizing it to resonate with your audience. But it's always about editing, and asking for examples will make a big difference too. But always going in and saying to yourself, all right, would I say this out loud? So speak it out loud even and say, does this sound like me? If it doesn't, then you need to edit it. Even if it sounds interesting. I've made this mistake myself before where it used a metaphor that I thought, oh, that's cool. I like that metaphor. But then when I was working with the people in my AI Success Club, Andy O'Brien, he said, would you really use that metaphor? And I said, oh, actually, no. Yeah, I think you should change that because it does sound like AI. So you start to recognize that too. That uses a lot of the same metaphors and you could just tell it's not human. So always have to do that as well. I think I have an example of that for you to show you what you can do. So I started a chat here to show you. I asked it. You can also ask ChatGPT for help with these things, like what are some prompts that'll help me create more creative content that's unique to me. So it gave me some different prompts that I could ask and different ideas here. So this is going to help you. It doesn't always work well, but it'll give you different prompts to try out. So you don't need one of those massive lists of prompts of 1,000 different ChatGPT prompts. You can ask ChatGPT for ideas for those and then start working on them yourself and seeing what works because you're always going to need to follow it up with other ideas. So here I also said, let's see, what about prompts for making some of my existing content more creative if I give you the content? And it gave me some different ideas, different things that it could do if I share a piece of content with it, like enhancement prompts, asking for feedback, analyzing the content, lots of different things it can do there. And if anyone has had good experience with doing that, definitely let me know. I'd love to hear, share in the chat, share in the comments what's worked well for you as well. But otherwise, let's move on to the next one. So how to ensure accuracy. This is a huge issue that's come up that's been going on the whole time since ChatGPT was released. There was that famous article about the lawyer who created a whole big argument in court with different cases using ChatGPT, and none of the cases actually existed, even though he had links as well. And it's become more accurate, but it still makes mistakes. It still will just generate a URL that doesn't exist. Sometimes the information will be correct, but the URL won't be. So you need to do your own fact checking on everything and always do a final human review. So even if the link works and it's giving you a summary, click on the link, check. Is the summary even correct? It isn't always, or it might have missed out on key points. And it will be getting better at that. But right now, it definitely falls short. ChatGPT and all of those language processing ones, you'll see it if you do any image creation also. It just, anything to do with text, it really has problems with. Actually, it has problems with a lot of things in the images, but I'm not going to go into that because that's not my expertise. And Lou, you have a comment there as well. Lou is in the background, Lou Bertone, helping me out with this. So you'll see him pop in here. So it'll say you're the author of a best-selling book you didn't write. Yeah, that still happens too. If you can ask it to go to link to the web and create a bio for you, and it'll just make stuff up. It still does that. It's been going on the whole time. And this includes the version where you can access the web. So it will browse with Bing, ChatGPT, or if you go into Bar and Google, it will browse and it won't necessarily give you accurate results. Or it might even give you something completely different and you have to ask it again and say, okay, that's wrong. Can you look again? Remember, you can do it as conversational, so don't worry about wording it precisely right, though there are some key things that do help with that prompt engineering, as they call it, as we call it. But let's go on to the next one and see what we have here. So actually, let me go back a second. This whole thing with the accuracy, that was something I went into ChatGPT and asked about also. So let me see where I can find it. I was playing around with different things. Examples. I was asking it to play with it, some stuff on a sales page to make it more creative. Okay, so here I asked it, let's move on to another concern of mine. How can I make sure that any facts or links you share with me are accurate? And it gave all different things you should be doing. Cross verification through reputable sources. Remember, Google, if you're using that to check things, be very careful and make sure it's a reputable source because there is a lot of that AI generated content showing up now that they're battling. And even some of the reputable sources aren't necessarily as accurate as they once were. From what I've read, there are some bigger sites that are using too much AI and not necessarily being as accurate as they should be. So look at more than one source also and make sure it sounds credible. It is credible. Look for the original source. And they're saying it right here, ChatGPT, check the credibility, make sure it's recent information. So if you see something that's a fact or statistic, that doesn't have a date on it, if you click through or copy it into quotes and put it into Google and search for it, you can tend to find where it's from. So if it's from 2013, not necessarily accurate any longer. So look for recent stuff. It said contextual understanding. Sometimes facts can be accurate but misleading if taken out of context. Now that's interesting. This is where ChatGPT came in helpful for just asking that question about verifying. I didn't even think of this straight off the bat, but something can be misleading in the wrong context. Official statement, scientific, fact checking websites, lots of different things. Ask for clarification. So there are various things you can do to make sure that anything you do is accurate. Concern number 4, which I talked about a little bit already, it's that unique voice and creativity. Not only do you not want to sound like everyone else, you want to add a little more creativity. You don't want to sound robotic. You want to have your voice in it. So you can use it to enhance your individual creativity. You have those custom instructions in there with your tone and style and voice, but you can also do things like direct it for a specific role or an audience or different perspectives. So you can You can play with, there are some GPTs out there. I'll show you as well. Those are things that have some prompts pre-programmed into them. Those can help, but you can also ask it to explain something as if you are a beginner or a novice marketer. So you can ask it to explain it in a certain way. Explain it to me as if I'm a fourth grader or things like, and it'll change the way it explains. So I will show you that. And also, if you give it feedback, you should always give it feedback and tell it what you like, what you didn't like. You'll rarely get something in the first prompt that works well. So if we look at that now, see what I did here. So here's an example where I said, I had given it some sales page copy from my ChatGPT course, I think. And I said, can you explain the course as if you were speaking to someone who is brand new to content creation? So that's as if, and it totally changed the way it was written. And said, I understand that starting out can be a bit overwhelming, but guess what? We've got just a thing to help you find your feet. And it has something that's just a more interesting explanation, very different from what I'd done. So think of it as a friendly guide for your journey. It uses that word a lot. So I wouldn't use that into content creation. Think of ChatGPT as a helpful robot buddy that's here to make your life easier. So I wouldn't necessarily use all this language, but it gave a different idea for how I could explain it. And that's something that'll help with creating things that are a little more creative. And it worked on some of the other copy as well. And then to be creative again, I said, okay, now use the Socratic method to discuss the pros and cons of using AI to create content. So you can prompt it to give you arguments for and against. That's where you can start getting creative also. And it gave some pros, some cons. I said, then can you write out a simple list of the pros and cons? So you can start doing things like that because I wouldn't want to share that whole long thing there, that whole long answer. I would want it a little more concise. And then I'd go in and edit. I could ask it for some metaphors. That is, that's everything. The important thing here is also giving it feedback. So saying what you liked and didn't like. And you can even, again, if it's conversational, say, that's not really what I was looking for. I'm looking for this. You don't have the right audience. Let's change the audience to this. It's not, I want it in a different perspective. I want it more conversational. None of this point isn't right. It should be this. So giving it lots of feedback as if you were working with an assistant who needs a lot of guidance. That's what you need to do. And it'll start learning more and more. And as ChatGPT evolves, it'll get better at this also at remembering the feedback that you gave. ChatGPT 5, I think, will have a lot more of that. I don't know when it's coming out, but it'll be very different. So I think they'll go slowly on that because it'll do more of that, remembering what you've said, what information you've given it. Keeping up with new tools and trends is something else that's been a huge challenge. I know you're all overwhelmed with it. I have certain newsletters that I follow that I just skim through and see if there's anything that pops out that I feel I should know. The sections where it has the latest tools, which are every single day, I ignore entirely because there's just no point. There's a new tool every day. Maybe they'll last, maybe they won't. Most of them are very niche specific. So they're geared for one thing that you need to get done. So in certain industries that may be useful, for instance, I saw one related to the automotive industry, something else with real estate, something else with medical practices. So if there is something very specific to your industry, you might want to look at that. Otherwise, for most of them, I would just ignore or find just a few tools that you'll use over and focus on those and focus on your specialty. So I focus on written content and on course creation And I also do a little bit of video editing. I'm not interested in audio. I have no interest in replacing my voice on anything or my face on anything. I know some people want to be able to do that. I just don't like it. It loses all the personal aspect. I'd rather make mistakes when I'm speaking and have to edit them a little bit in my video editor, Descript, versus just sounding like a robot. Also, the tone modulation. But if that's something that's really important to you, there are tools out there and you want to find the one that works best for you and just focus on that and don't get distracted by all the other. Just skim through, put on your blinders, only focus on what matters to you. Another big concern is plagiarism. And you'll see this in the news lately. There have been some lawsuits around it, some really big lawsuits. I think it was the New York Times saying that their material had been copied to train the model, to train, I think it was for ChatGPT, but it doesn't matter. It's for all of these models, of what they're training the model on, and not having permission to use that material. And then saying they said that people were able to get that content word for word out of the model. Typically, you can't get an exact copy of the language because it does generate something different each time. But this is definitely a concern and it's evolving. More and more laws and rules around that. You'll see it happening over time. So there are ways around that as well for you. You can use your original input and then customize it, but just use it in pieces. So you'll avoid plagiarizing other people if you're working with your own original content. So you take a piece of a course, for instance, just part of it, like a couple paragraphs, and get some customization out of that. Then you know the whole thing isn't getting copied. The other thing you can do is turn off the sharing settings in ChatGPT. So if you go into ChatGPT and you go into your name, there's settings and beta, and you can go into data controls and you can turn off chat history and training. If you turn that off, it will not use your content to train the model. So you don't have to worry as much. Nothing's foolproof, but you don't have to worry about it using your content. And the only issue there is that it won't save all your chat. So along the left-hand side, usually you have all that history of chat. It won't save them, so you'll need to export them all the time. There is now also this team workspace. That's something I'm going to be signing up for my team. We have a private ChatGPT that I had someone build that just taps into their API. So I don't use the public one for anything that's internal to us. But now I can add this team workspace that you pay for per person, and it won't be using your data to train the model. So that's really important where it says team data excluded from training by default. So I'll be exploring that and we'll see how that works out, whether we get to see previous chats too, because I find it really useful to have my previous chats if there's something that I want to go back and work on from another week. So that was ChatGPT's answer also to how to avoid plagiarism, share things apart, generalize your queries, except if you're too general, you're not going to get answers that you want. Use watermarked or secured documents. So if you have to share a document, that's something interesting that I didn't realize. You can watermark it and that'll help. Retain original drafts. That's really just for proof that you own something. You don't want to have to go there. You don't want to have to deal with going after someone who's copied your work. Don't never ever share sensitive information or highly unique content. I don't know how you term highly unique, but that's up to you. Non-disclosure agreements, monitor. Yeah, monitoring for plagiarism is important if you have certain things that you want to make sure aren't being used elsewhere or copied, trademark, educating yourself, all that sort of stuff. Let's go back now to the next concern here. And again, if you have any questions, pop them into the chat. So another one is, will AI replace me? And you'll see this in the news all the time also, the fear of your job being replaced. People are firing some of their workforce and replacing with AI, though often they regret that afterwards. And that's probably part of the reason there's more garbage out there. But it's a concern for a lot of people. And the way to think about it is AI is a productivity partner. It's not actually a replacement. Now, I'm talking about content creators here for written content in particular, but really for any type of content you're creating. It is your assistant. It's empowering you to create better content, higher quality content, but also save time on the productivity. And without your input, your human driving of this, your hands on the wheel, and you editing everything, it's just going to be more noise, anything you create. Because, like I said in the beginning, it doesn't have judgment. It doesn't have emotional intelligence. It can't see the nuances. It's not intuitive. And you always have to add that yourself and monitor it. And when I asked ChatGPT about this as well, I said, had it ask some of the arguments around whether AI will replace human jobs. So this is like that Socratic method to get something more interesting. I asked for a debate. What are the arguments for and against? So the arguments for were things like routine tasks. So in the technology side. So I didn't say written content. I just asked it more generally. So cost efficiency and rather a lot of different arguments here. But on the for, it's creation of new job categories, complementing human abilities rather than replacing them. And there are limitations, so you need humans involved. But then I asked it specifically about content creator jobs and getting the for and against, the arguments about those, efficiency, advancements, all those different things, saying that the arguments for that it can replace and the arguments against, that you still need human creativity and it's can't understand nuanced audiences. There's the ethical issues that it can't understand. A lot of things about deeper understanding, being adaptive to learning and trends, personal connection and storytelling. It can't do. It can just copy whatever you put into it. So those are the arguments for and against. I do not think it will place jobs at all, but I do think it already has created a lot of new jobs and it will continue to do that. And it will also be best for companies that have the budget. So they've already been seeing that in some cases, there was a report, I think, coming from MIT that said that it still isn't economically feasible in some situations to replace a person with AI because there's so much involved in implementing the actual AI technology. So I don't think you have to worry about that. Just make sure that you learn the skills to use it effectively. And lastly, balancing time saving with quality. So I talked about just the overwhelm of all these new tools and keeping up, but you need to balance whatever time saving with the output that you're getting. So you can streamline specific processes. So if you know what's working, what's you've been practicing a lot, and I say practice, look at the processes that you do all the time, see which parts AI or ChatGPT are helping you with, and build those in. And that's something that we also go through at the end of the course, that ChatGPT course I mentioned, where at the end, people look at their workflow for specific tasks and see what can be AI, what has to be human. So looking at where it actually helps and having guidelines on that. And make sure you have your content standards laid out, your guidelines. And that's also in the course as well. And also knowing when to stop is really important, the time saving. When I played with ChatGPT a lot earlier in the game, earlier in the year, I found I actually wasted a ton of time trying to push it to get something up to my quality standards. Way more time than I should have. So you have to know when you're at a point of diminishing returns. So you can ask it a few questions. You'll get better at that and get better at asking the right questions and getting something as a starting point. And then know, okay, I can do it from here. I'll stop. And what I sometimes do there is I'll take something it's done, completely rework it, rewrite it, get it to what I'm happy with, and then give it back to ChatGPT and say, okay, this is how I rewrote it. Remember this and do this next bit in the same style and tone and format. So then you can start pushing it to do more of what you want. But know when it's just enough already and you have to take over complete control. And that is everything. So if you have any questions for me, please pop that into the chat. Otherwise, I'll give you a quick look at what our launch is of our new course. So I'll be looking out for questions. You can pop them in. Remember, if you're watching on the replay, I'll also look at that. But our new course that I mentioned before will go through those essential skills that everyone needs for creating content with ChatGPT, for creating written content. And for this particular course, I said it's laid out differently because we give you the materials for a live presentation or recording videos. So you're going to get a slideshow and speaking notes, not a whole long ebook, which would require a lot of time to update each time there's a change with ChatGPT. So you don't want to put together an ebook like some people are doing and sell that and then have to constantly update it and send out a new version, which is going to take a lot of time investment every time. Or there's the case of selling it and then a week later it's out of date completely and you've just wasted all that time putting it together and have to invest a lot of time again reworking it. I've had that happen to me in the past. It's why I really stay away in general from doing big courses on a topic that's going to change constantly. And that's why for this ChatGPT one, which I've been asked for over and over, we made it in this particular format to make it really easy to update slides and speaking notes and a workbook. Those are the key things that you need, not a huge workbook. And then there's a whole bunch of prompts as well. That's minimum viable content. People will still get the materials they need, that workbook, and you're making it a very practical course with lots of demos. And I know this is a little scary for some people, which is why I'm also doing a train the trainer. Train the trainer is where I go on a live session with you. That's for people who buy the course during the launch. They get the live session. Everyone else will just get the recordings. But in the live session, I'll go through the actual materials and talk about easy ways to get it set up, tips for sharing your screen and doing the demos, all those different tips to help you teach it. And I'll take questions live as well. So this is something I've not done before. It's special to this because you're not getting that ebook and you need to be able to teach it yourself, which is not difficult. It really is not difficult. It's not that different from what I'm doing here, where I'm sharing the screen. I set up some chats in advance, which you'll do with the course and different examples of creating content. You can create one chat or multiple ones. And I just switch back and forth to my screen and say, okay, here's what I did. As long as you set that up in advance, you can easily go through and then you'll get speaking notes. They'll show you just a quick example of the speaking notes. We give you facilitator instructions, the slides. The slideshow content is just the slide text in another document. We give you that because it's easy to download and use in other places as well. So if you want to upload it to Word online and try and generate a presentation or use some other slideshow tool. But the main things are the slideshow speaker notes. That's for you. Student workbook, prompt examples are for your students. For the slides, you can create a PDF to share those with the students too. And that way they have that. So that's what that looks like. Lots of instructions in there, plus that trainer that I talked about. And I see a question. How often will the content be updated? Right now, it's up to date. I will update it as I see something new that's come out. And the reason that I did it in Google Docs this time and Google Slides is because whenever I do an update, say there's suddenly been a change and everyone can use the free version for links, for instance. Right now, you have to have the paid version, and the course is mainly going to be or will be most valuable for people to get to use the paid version. That's what we recommend, and that's how the course is set up. But I'll do it right there, and then you would instantly have those updates. So if you use it as is, you can just make a copy, add your branding, teach the course using the materials that you get. And then when you do it again, you'll get another one. You just go and make a copy again to make sure you have the latest version. So it's instantaneous updates. And if there's anything significant that I have to change in it, I'll just send out an email to everyone who purchased the course and say, okay, I've made some bigger updates. You're going to want to make a copy of it, get that access. But once you have that PDF, you'll just get one PDF with all the links. And it's just a PDF in a folder, and that has all the links in it to those different Google Docs. It will look like you'll get different documents that'll open up and you'll have to make a copy of it. So you can always go in and make a copy again. You'll have that link. All right. But I'll let you know if there's major updates. It's not a set schedule of doing updates. It's as needed. All right. What else? Any other questions? I mentioned also you get the train the trainer recordings. So that's something that will be for people, anyone who gets this afterwards. But right now, if you get it during the launch, you get the best price. It's normally going to be 177 and it's just 67 during the launch. And that includes that live session, which will be on February 6th. And then you'll also get the recordings of that. And there's a bunch of other bonuses too to help you with like registration page copy and some follow-up emails. But the trainer, I don't know exactly how long that will go on for. In other words, how long it'll take to run it, because I haven't done it before for this type of course. So it's going to be something new. I'm setting aside an hour and a half to 2 hours, and we'll just stay on until it's done. No more than 2 hours. I'll try to be really concise. So I'll try for an hour and a half, but the way I'll run it is I'll do portions and then allow questions, another portion, allow questions, and then people who do not buy it during the launch will just get the recorded parts and not the Q&A. So if you have other questions you're going to want to ask, then you should definitely try and join that. It's going to be I set the time already. I think it's at 9 a.m. Pacific, which is noon Eastern. So let's see. Yeah. Is it for sale now? Yes. That's this URL right here. And all that launch deal is just until the end of the month, which is next Wednesday, the 31st at midnight Pacific. That's the launch deal. The new course, will it cover how to create online courses? No, this is not about creating online courses with ChatGPT. This is about creating a variety of different types of written content. Creating online courses with ChatGPT is a much more complicated process that does involve knowing a bit about instructional design. You can figure out your target audience, things like that. But if you don't know instructional design, it's difficult to get something that's actually good. It can be a little bit helpful with getting some initial ideas, for getting ideas for learning activities and learning objectives. You can have it write learning objectives in a certain format, like Bloom's taxonomy, You can ask it for different types of learning activities, assessments, quizzes. There are a variety of different things in there that you can do. I did do a blog post that I'll share. I'll share this Saturday, I think. Just send it out. I want to make sure it's up to date. And this has a little bit of information about the pros and cons of using it to help with creating online courses. But it is more complicated than a lot of people let on. A lot of people are saying, oh, you can create it in 5 minutes, just a few clicks, no problem. But no. Won't the content be quickly outdated? I don't see the difference between having to update an ebook as against updating a video course, other than the video course being more difficult to update. Actually, a video course, firstly, an ebook is more complicated because you have to do the whole big thing and there's a lot more text involved. So you have to go in and actually to check absolutely everything. Whereas if you're just using a slideshow and recording videos with that or presenting live as well, which is the ideal, then you can just do individual videos and just have to update one tiny portion of it. And we tried to design this to be as evergreen as possible versus quickly outdated. Now, if ChatGPT 5 suddenly comes out tomorrow and that becomes the norm, then there's going to be more to do in here. So that's why you really want to jump on it now, start teaching it now. But a lot of portions of it are the same for a lot of different AI tools also. So we go into things like basic prompt engineering of what you need to give ChatGPT in your prompts. That's not going to change. Things about taking a role, giving it context, guidelines, how you word your prompts, that's not going to change. So I'm betting most of it will stay up to date for a while. I can't give you an exact time. But when it comes to updating, we've had to do things with ebooks versus just a slideshow, and it is much more time intensive, much more to have to update. And remember, with a video course, always record it in small bits, bite-sized pieces. So if you have to just do one, it's a really quick, easy thing to do. And then just update it and say, okay, send out an email to your students and say, okay, we've just updated this video. Done. It's as simple as that. Don't overcomplicate it and make it more difficult than it needs to be. And same with an action guide or workbook. All right. But I really suggest you do this initially live because you'll see what's working and what isn't working. If you can do that, it's going to be a big help to you. Next question. Isn't it hard to stop looking for new prompts and so mailbox public good? Yes, it's very difficult. I've started ignoring a lot of those because I find that with ChatGPT, it's better to just have a conversation with it. And some of those prompts, it's the same stuff over and over. And you can just ask ChatGPT for what information it needs or ask it what a good prompt is. And that will help you. You don't need the rest. And every time you need some sort of information and you're stuck, you can just go in and ask ChatGPT for advice or a prompt or what details it needs. But it can be useful looking at some of those prompts for something you haven't thought of before. That's why I also belong to this AI Success Club because they share prompts every week and they have it by different topics and themes. So I can share that with you. Also, the club that I belong to, I'll do that in one of my emails afterwards because I don't want to distract everybody now. But I would stay away from the gazillion gurus. I have the same issue. I see those. I kind of glance at them a bit. Sometimes I get distracted by them and have to remind myself to put it aside and not get distracted and not waste more time on it. But having a list of 1,000 prompts is not going to do you any good. Better to learn the skills of creating your own. Will you create a course on using AI assistants to create a course? I'm not planning to do that right now, mainly because when I asked my customers about that, whether they wanted that, the reply was, why would we do that when you already create them for us? because it is very time intensive to create a course using AI and create a good course using AI. I did do a live stream a few months ago. I have to look at when I did it, where I went through some tips for creating a course with AI. I'll see if I can find that and whether it's still up to date. It's on my YouTube channel in the live streams, and I'll see if that would help. Simulation, you would buy that. Okay. I'll put that down as an idea of something, see what would be involved. I want to make sure that it would also be something that's easy to keep up to date as things change. And again, you do need to know your topic as well. All right. So I'll talk about that. I'll see if that's something we could put together. Say new entrepreneurs need guidance. Yeah. Just let me know what you mean by that. I mean, everyone needs guidance, right? I'm assuming you're talking about the course creation as well. But if you're talking about something else, just let me know. All right. And I think that's everything. If you don't have more questions, again, this is the link on here to go to the sales page. This is just an overview of what's covered in the course so that you get people into the right mindset for using AI with content creation, some of the basics around that. You go what it can and can't do. You go through personalizing for audience and style. So there's some prompts and ways to create those custom instructions, defining your audience and style, and specifically the style and tone. And then how to write effective prompts is a really important module right there, how to structure it so that you're giving ChatGPT or any AI prompt tool, chat tool like that, the specifics of what you want, the context, guidelines, examples, how to structure that into an effective prompt. And then there's a whole bunch of different options and prompts for creating content for your business. And this is something that makes it very easy for you to tailor to your audience too. So there are prompts for everything from social media posts to an FAQ and a bio, things like that. And you can set those up in advance, different demos, and then either if you're doing it as a video recording, do separate videos, or if you're doing it live, just pick and choose the ones that your people are most interested in. Then you have those ready to go. And then I mentioned there's a whole thing on building skills, avoiding overload, some of the stuff that we just talked about, and the AI guidelines and workflow. That's another thing that's pretty evergreen. A lot of this AI guidelines is how you're going to use AI in your business. So you want your students to do that, lay it out. You have a student workbook that's also in a Google Doc, like everything else. So you would share the view only version, like you're getting a view only where you have to make a copy. You'd share that with your students, and then they can add to that, add their guidelines, workflow, their prompts that have worked for them. They're going to do a lot of practice, but then you want them to come away with what they're going to use moving forward. So that's the last part of the course. And any other questions in there? Let me just take a look. You said I'm working very intense on a new platform. I've got about 12 courses for you. Oh, yay. Thank you. And plan to get another 8. So I have 20 before launch. That's a lot to try and launch all at once. If you don't mind me giving you a piece of advice, I would launch one to start with because you're going to get feedback on one. And if you try and do 20 all at once, it's going to take you a lot longer, whereas you can be building an audience and earning from even just one to start with. I know you might want to have a whole big training series and an online library and stuff or membership, but you're going to delay earning anything from that and building an audience if you wait. So just aim to do one at a time. And people might get overwhelmed also if you have 20 of them all at once. You can just drip them out and tell people it's coming. So just from my experience, looking to create a community to help new entrepreneurs mostly. Great. Yeah. And like I said, that takes time to build. So you want to get started right away and don't wait to have everything all set up. But you said you do have an audience, which is fabulous. So even better, if you get one going, you can already be starting to sell that and getting feedback on it as you do the rest of them, the other 19. Awesome. We have a money community of 300,000 users. Oh, kept moving on that. Also, that's fantastic. That is so great. You are ready to go. If there are no more questions in here, been working on it since last year. That's great. Oh, you are ready to go and start earning from this. Please don't wait. Please don't wait to get it perfect. Do something like we have set up in this course where you're just doing the slides and some speaking notes and recording or presenting. And if you can do it live, if you already have an audience like that, just get one going, do a minimum viable one and see how people interact with it because you will get feedback on what's worked and what hasn't worked. And then you can go and do it differently the next time, or if it's just the way you want, record those videos. And if you're really uncomfortable with teaching it live, then just do it in those bite-sized videos, like I said before, so that if you had to change anything, edit anything, you're just doing one little bit at a time. Not like I'm doing here for over an hour, which we will try and break up as well. All right, I am going to close up now because we're out of time. And I'll look out for questions. So please pop those into the comments or send me an email. Like I said before, you can do that at support@contentsparks.com. Otherwise, you have that link right at the top here, contentsparks.com/chatgpt content. And that's where you'll be able to get this launch price and join my live Zoom call where I'll give you the tips for using it to train, called Train the Trainer, on February 6th. All right. Otherwise, you'll get the recordings after February 6th. And that's all. Thanks for joining and sticking with me, everyone. Take care now.